right, we're going to get started here. Welcome to MIF September in Vancouver. Glad you can make it today. I know it's been nice weather this week. You hate to give up nice weather days to come to a conference, but I think your timing's good, despite the fact that most people don't care and aren't paying attention to what's going on. I think the masses, have been deluded for the most part, but they're making money, so you can't fault them for that. I think this bubble economics and insane deficit spending now is finally coming to a head. We're inching closer to our moment again. And it doesn't feel that way to most people, but for those that come to a show like this, you're the contrarians. You see the signals. You're getting a feeling that this turn is finally going to come. And we've been waiting on it. We've been patient. It's been frustrating, but I can feel it now. It's almost palpable to me that this turn is coming and there's a lot of money that's going to be made. So I think your timing's good. So yeah, Greg McCoach, Mining Speculator. Today I'm with three of my recommended companies, Golden Predator, White Gold, and Aben Resources. They'll be presenting right after me. Soon after we get done, right after Jim presents for Aben, we'll be moving into the back room so you can ask questions of all my recommended companies that are here. So I'm going to start out. Gold is an anti-government investment, okay? That's a shocking statement to some people, but if you believe in higher gold prices, then you're basically, believe that government, the way they're performing and what they're doing is not going to work in the end. You're betting against government. So with that in mind, let's get into some of the dynamics of what I believe is coming. I believe a severe correction is coming to all markets. Okay, we're the only market that's not booming, commodities and precious metals. All the other markets are going great guns. Okay, I think those markets are going to correct to the downside, and precious metals and commodities is going to correct to the upside. The commodities are the basic building blocks of society. How can these prices be held in check where they are? The US dollar, while strong at the moment, now has a definite bearish slant to me for the future. Ongoing debasement of fiat currencies worldwide, requiring greater amounts to purchase the stuff that we all buy, in our daily lives. That the bearish slant on the dollar has to do with a lot of the lack of participation by the big buyers of T-bills, the Russians, the Chinese, the Saudis. There's a definite move away from buying the treasuries. They've reduced their treasury purchases by quite a margin, and that trend is continuing. On top of that, you have the Chinese gold-backed petrodollar, where more and more countries are opting to use that currency to buy their oil, which is very negative for the dollar. So these things are happening. Some people might say it's slow, but I think there's a lot of, it's like almost like a crescendo of events that are all coming to a head, and we'll talk about those. Investors in mining shares, unfortunately, for the next few months, we're probably going to be facing a tough year-end due to U.S. elections, which will probably keep a lid on gold prices for the time being, and tax loss selling. But again, this is an opportunity, not something to fear or worry about, because I do think in 2019 things are going to change. I'm also seeing more and more people are waking up. They no longer trust governments or the institutions of our government that they once did. Society is descending into unsustainable traps, in my view. The two recent things that I saw, just shocking to me. The Kavanaugh situation for the Supreme Court in the U.S. is really disturbing. It doesn't matter what side of the argument you're on. It's disturbing that we're descending into this chaos and hatred to such a level. In my view, it's just not sustainable. And that's just another thing added on to everything else that we're seeing. The other thing that was quite shocking to me recently, I don't know if everybody saw the Michael Hayden. He's the NSA guy. He was recently videotaped at a conference at West Washington University. Google search it, you'll see it. And listen to this guy, this pompous a-hole, and the things he's saying. I mean, it's just shocking. I just wanted to reach through the video screen and grab the guy by the neck. I mean, it's disgusting that these people think the way they do, right? And it's just beyond belief. So basically what he was saying, he was using this as a platform, this moment, to say about Brennan when he lied before Congress when they asked, you know, does the government spy on its citizens, right? And he said, oh, no, of course not, right? Well, everybody knew he was lying, but this guy, Michael Hayden, says, well, yeah, he didn't handle that very well, you know, but we have nothing to apologize for, right? We've been eavesdropping on all your conversations and texts and emails since 2002, and we have the authority to do so, right? And he was just so cocky about it, you know? And like, how dare you even, you know, think of us in a negative way for that, right? So that's a disturbing trend that I think isn't sustainable either, because all this is coming to some kind of terrible conclusion in my view. So gold is the glimmering light in an increasingly corrupt and dark world that we're seeing. I saw this graphic on one of the recent articles. Inflation is coming, gold is going up, you do the math, right? But it's a glimmering light in a dark financial situation that to most people, they would think that's a crazy statement, but they don't understand the things that are happening. They're oblivious. They don't take the time to think for themselves, unfortunately, and they get caught up in the paradigms that they hear on television, right? Whatever the TV tells them, you know? The talking heads, right? So I think the tipping point for markets, all markets, is likely in our near future, probably 2019. I'm thinking that the next good chance for us to start to move is after the new year, probably towards, you know, mid-January. And that's when I see the chance for gold and silver prices to really kind of break out of this tight trading range they've been in, and almost a negative bearish slant for sure. But there's global debts are soaring, interest rates are going higher, contrarian indicators for precious metals abound. We'll talk about those a little later. Fund managers sense a change. I was just up at the Beaver Creek Precious Metals Summit last week. I go there every year. I've been going there for 7 years now. It's one of my favorite conferences to go to because it's like a gauge for me what these fund managers are doing. These are the biggest participants in our market. When they come into the market, that's when we see the big moves, right? When they want to buy something, they don't buy $100,000 or 200,000 shares. They come with $5 million, $8 million, $10 million per company or more. And we haven't seen that in a long time. But I have to tell you, in the 7 years I've been there, this was the highest attendance I've ever seen. Over 1,100 fund managers were there. And they were kicking the tires and doing lots of meetings, and it was fun to see a couple of our companies, Great Bear Resources. Everybody wanted a meeting with them. They didn't have enough time. Over 3 days, they were booked solid and didn't even get to a fraction of the fund managers that wanted to talk to them. So as you saw here yesterday, if you were here yesterday, Chris Taylor, CEO Chris Taylor of Great Bear, is on his way to Toronto and New York to meet with more of these fund managers. So those are good signs to us. We like that. So they sense a change is coming. They can feel it, right? And you know, one of the fund managers, you know, I was talking to, he says, Greg, we're going to make money again. I can feel it. We're going to make money, right? He got excited because he can see it. So I think once the tipping point is reached, this long-term trend in the positive, you know, up, strong dollar is going to tank. It's going to turn. And most people can't see that right now. It just doesn't appear that way. But the dollar long position, I think, will be liquidated at that time. The interest in the dollar, and it'll be gold that is the beneficiary of that moment. I really feel that's coming in the near term. So the contrarian indicators I'm watching right now, the record speculative short position in precious metals on the COMEX. These arrogant traders, you know, have come to believe this is a one-way trade. If gold goes up, they just immediately short it, right? Immediately. I mean, in big time, paper shorting of the precious metal price. And so far, they've got the upper hand. They're winning, okay? But that is a contrarian signal that something is really wrong. And, you know, these are all signs. These signs have been with us for a while now, but they're growing in stature suddenly. Another contrarian signal I saw was when Vanguard's rebalanced its $2.3 billion gold and precious metal fund into their global capital cycles fund, trimming their exposure down to about 25% in precious metals under management. So that is a contrarian signal to me. And several of the fund managers at Beaver Creek looked at it as the same. The merger and acquisition phase of the bear market in mining, we see the Randgold Barrick talks, looking to do a merger. Personally, I don't understand why Barrick's doing this. It doesn't make sense to me. I haven't looked into the fine details, but again, this is activity that you see at the bottom of a bear market. So, I see a lot of average retail investors in my discussions. When I'm at the money show, everybody's interested in pot stocks and crypto still, right? Couldn't care less about gold. And, they look at me like I'm, gold. What are you talking about, right? But again, when you drill down into their logic and understanding, you see that they really don't get it. They don't get what's going on. Unfortunately, here we are, not making a whole lot of money other than our recent discoveries, but they're making money, so again, you can't fault them. The only investment sector not booming is commodities and precious metals. So these are contrarian signals that look like they're going to change. Ongoing rumblings, other things that are just in the mix that just cause some concern. The fallout from the Brexit situation, can you believe after all these years we're still dealing with a decision that the people voted and it's not being honored? I don't care what side of the equation you're on. If a people's vote doesn't matter anymore, then where's society going? Italy now, Italy's Brexit. They're talking about Italy being the next to leave. You just have to question an authoritarian group of people who aren't elected. The EU board, basically, these are not elected officials that are making these decisions and pushing these agendas. That doesn't represent the people. The Syria situation, the bureaucratic coup against Trump, all the chaos and confusion that's going on with that. The end of QE from the Western central banks. The trade tariff wars, the potential for chaos and economic damage with that. And then the last one, I've been really trying to follow this one quite closely because it seems eerily similar to what I was looking at in 2007, just prior to the 2008 meltdown. And that's the emerging nations that are collapsing, basically. Their currencies are collapsing, and gold is like this, going up against those currencies. And so there's a signal. That's a bullish signal that something is about to turn with gold. We've seen this before, and it started with, it was Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela. Those countries went first, and then it's transferred over to Europe, went to Turkey, then a bunch of banks in Spain had loaned them a bunch of money, and then it's affecting Spain and Italy. So, it's going from emerging countries to weaker developing countries in Europe right now. Will it spread? The Fed is obviously watching this very closely because these are the rumblings that we had right in 2007 that nobody paid attention to. So that's a concern. Gold is the retail investor's hedge against government instability, insanity, and less faith in our established institutions. The match, or a catalyst as I like to call it, that lights this terrible tinderbox of extraordinary proportions is getting closer and closer. Don't worry about what you can control, but look at this as an incredible time of opportunity to make big money. Concentrate on what you can control. You can own gold, silver, physical metals. You can own the quality mining shares. You can take a preparedness mindset. Most people think that's a crazy thought, but I've talked to a lot of people recently that are doing just that. After that, all investors can do is get out of the way and let the governments and central banks go ahead and commit suicide, economic suicide, because that's what they're doing. Why? Debt snowball. Look at this. Global debt is up almost 150 trillion in the last 15 years. We're paying for all this stuff we can't afford with all this debt, right? Look at household debt in green, non-financial corporate in red, government debt in black, financial in gray. It's just a ridiculous number. These are absurd numbers. A trillion, I always tell people, a trillion is a Very, very big number in terms of seconds. 1 million seconds is 12 days. 1 billion seconds is 32 years. 1 trillion seconds is 32,000 years. These numbers are absurd. U.S. interest expense, the interest that the government is going to pay next year is over for 2018 is over $500 billion. And interest rates are rising, and we're overspending at a rate every year of $1 trillion in the U.S. $1 trillion a year deficit added on to the $22 trillion, $500 billion a year in interest, rising interest rates. That looks like it's going to $1 trillion in the next few years. $1 trillion in interest? Are you kidding me? That's game over. That would suffocate all the other programs of the government, military, spending, everybody, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, just nuts. I like this. I found this, Tom Luongo, he's a contributor on JS Mindset, Jim Sinclair's website. He said, for bear markets to truly end, investor sentiment has to get to the point where they would rather walk on broken glass with bare feet than buy that asset or asset class. Well, they don't want to buy precious metals or mining stocks right now. These guys at the Money Show, this is exactly how they look at mining stocks, right? So, but that sentiment, that's a contrarian indicator that precious metals are getting ready. We're at that point. We're getting ready to turn as a contrarian indicator. Think of it in terms of what is in the best interest of governments and central banks dealing with enormous debt. That's how you have to look at everything nowadays. Not so much the talking heads. You have to say, look, these guys are in big trouble. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to inflate, right? What has gone up and what has not? Well, the price of cell phones and cable and groceries and houses and cars, everything going up that we purchase on a day-to-day basis is going up. Insurance rates, car insurance, house insurance, going up through the roof, right? Gas prices. What's not going up? Commodities and precious metals, right? Time for the turn, a change, right? But the PTSB, I call them the powers that shouldn't be, now have severely distorted competing agendas. Why? Because they're caught, all this debt, the governments they serve, they can't really raise interest rates too aggressively, can they? Because the interest then becomes overwhelming. So that's why they've been able to extend this quite a while over the last few years, kick the can down the road, because they had to bring interest rates down to damn near zero, right? And that's how they've been able to perform this illusionary economic miracle. But that's coming to an end. This brings me back to Graham Summers. Many of you know I follow his work. I credit him for this understanding. The 10-year, the most important bond in the world is the 10-year Treasury. Look at this chart. This is big trouble, people. The Fed is in big trouble. They're not going to talk about it, okay? If you haven't read the Everything Bubble, I keep recommending it. It's a world of good understanding that'll bring you to a better understanding of what's going on. To make matters worse, look at the 30-year Treasury, right? It is now broken out. This is making it even worse. So virtually every government in the world is trying to promote inflation, partly because there is so much sovereign debt. It's just getting to the point where it's overwhelming. With so much debt, governments only have three choices: default, which is unthinkable; restructure, which is probably possible, but only after they inflate the hell out of everything, right? Once that inflation collapses everything, then they're going to restructure, and that's going to be a sad day for the average investor who doesn't own gold or exposure to mining stocks. So that's coming, unfortunately. Dow-gold ratio, I mean, one-on-one ratio, gold price of gold with the price of the Dow in 1980, we're at 22 ounces of gold to purchase the Dow at 27,000. I can't remember what it was on Friday, but anyway, it's 22 ounces roughly. I think that is going to go closer to parity again. We're going to see the Dow and gold get closer and closer again as we make this turn. 3 strategies for profiting in junior mining stocks. I wrote that article. It's in your circular. Strategy number 1, buy the best discoveries on the cheap during the tax loss season. This is a good time to dollar cost average. Aben Resources, Great Bear Resources, Golden Predator, Golden Ridge, GT Gold, Metallus Gold are all companies I have in my newsletters. Strategy number 2, buy the quality development production plays with good share structure which sell off during tax season. And strategy number 3, buy the companies that are trading at or near cash value. So you'll see I recommend some companies in there for that. My newsletter services, Mining Speculator, the TMS, we refer to it. secondary newsletter, the U308 report. I started that again. I've done that before, but I believe that the uranium bull market is coming. I still think it's 2 years away. Others think not, but I think we still have 2 years to go. And then my Insider Alert, which is my premium service, where I introduce my newest companies before they go into the mining speculator. And Insider Alert members get all 3 newsletters for the price of one. So also the Inner Circle, my service for clients that want to invest with me in the private placements I invest in side by side. So those are my services. If you want to subscribe to any of the letters, www.discoverynexus.com. Thank you very much for listening.